Good day, nerds. Welcome to the Multiverse of Entertainment podcast. This is the podcast where we dive into the world of TV and movies, and we discuss the good, the bad, and the damn right ugly. My name is James. Welcome to the show, and this week is episode 43. And we are talking one of another not so great Star Trek movies ever made. It's definitely not the worst. I don't think so. Or it might be the worst in my book, I think. But I don't think it's the worst in some fans' like minds. But it is the first one that started it all. We are talking Star Trek, the motion picture. As I like to begin the podcast here, thank you very much for the support and watching us and listening to us throughout these now 43 weeks of continuous podcasting. Well, I wouldn't say greatness, as I don't want to get too big-headed, because I've got no reason to be big-headed. But I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I'm thoroughly enjoying reading, seeing all the views, and people listening as well. And love the fact that the podcast is still growing and growing and growing. So thank you all for doing that. And keep commenting on the videos, keep commenting on feedback as well. I'd love to hear from you all. I think I'm going to start doing posts and post like midweek and seeing if people will interact with it. Like, oh, this is the episode I'm talking about this week. Give us your thoughts on it. So I think that would be really cool to engage with everybody on social media, and I would love to keep doing that as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, onwards and upwards from here, right? Cool, calm, collected, as we say here on the podcast. That is our motto. With that being said, let's get into the episode. We are talking Star Trek, the motion picture, which originally released in cinemas on December 7th, 1979. Enjoy the podcast, guys. Let's go. I actually used the wrong sound bite there. I just realized, but screw it. It doesn't matter. Great music, by the way, this movie. I always say when it comes to movies, it has great music. This show this movie in particular, has such a unique soundtrack that even the TV show previously, the TV show had iconic music in it, but they clearly needed a new soundbite and a new soundtrack to go with this movie. Going, right, this is the movie phase of this franchise, and we need to make it a unique listen, a unique feel. So then they roped in one of the greatest music composers of all time, Jerry Goldsmith, to create some music that would fit with the show, fit with the movie, but also fit in with what is actually going on and the new era that the Star Trek franchise was going in. So when you hear the movie as it opens, many of you are like, wait, isn't this the Next Generation theme? And it's like, yes, it is, because the theme for this movie was adapted for the Next Generation theme. This is like the full length version, and the Next Generation theme is like the shortened version of this theme with a few added extras into it as well. And Jerry Goldsmith is fantastic when it comes to the music. The composers for these movies, they weaved in and out. I mean, I think Jerry Goldsmith has only did the soundtracks for movies 1, 5, 8, 9, and 10, you know? And then in between, you had composers like James Horner, Danny Elfman, Dennis McCartney as well. And obviously for the reboot episodes, Michael, I'm going to butcher his name now. Michael, Gillinoli, is it? I butchered that name. It's something like that. I'm no good with names, as we could tell with these episodes of the podcast. But each composer had like their own unique feeling, their unique take on what kind of the music you want. And obviously through the years, the music in Star Trek has become so iconic and so loved by everybody when it gets played at like orchestras, like symphony orchestras on a concert night. Everyone, it doesn't matter if you've never watched Star Trek, okay, you would have heard that episode. You would have heard that You would have heard that music easily, and you would be like, "Oh, Star Trek, yes, let's get on with it," you know. But the music is so iconic. I love it, and I'm such a sucker for musical soundtracks. That if a musical soundtrack is great, then I'm roped in. This helps with the story of the movie as well. It kind of like brings it all together. But the movie did not have an easy. You would have thought a name with Star Trek. You would have gone, oh, maybe Star Trek will actually bring some good movies out. Now, this movie came out in 1979. Okay, 10 years, literally 10 years since the original trilogy got cancelled. Now, the original trilogy had 3 seasons. I think it was up for 5, but the network just went, "No, we're cancelling it after season 3," and then that was it. We didn't know what other stories were going to come. You know, there was an idea of Paramount were planning to bring back the franchise in a TV form known as Phase 2, and it was about 19. I think it was like, let me look at my notes here. 1975 or thereabouts. A little bit before then, they decided to like, oh, we'll revamp the series with a new show. The series' new title was called Star Trek Phase 2. But there was and an ahhing whether where William Shatner's crew was going to be brought back into it, or they were going to do a completely different cast and altogether. For me personally, I'm glad they didn't go with a second Star Trek series. Otherwise, we would never have had The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise, and then the new series we're getting now with like Lower Decks, Star Trek Picard, and Discovery as well. So think about that when we're talking about this. Sorry, I needed a drink there. So when they were deciding to, Gene Roddenberry, who created Star Trek, basically, he is the guy who came up with it. Gene Roddenberry is like the George Lucas of Star Trek, all right? Where George Lucas created Star Wars, he had the story, he created the story. Gene Roddenberry did exactly the same thing. Okay, now this is where the parallel between Star Wars and Star Trek are intertwined here. because the Paramount were going to say no to a movie. They was like, no, absolutely not, because you got movies like Star Wars and Encounters of a Third Kind out as well. You know, they were like, we don't know if we could get a movie out. You know, we'd rather stick with the series. However, the box office success of like I said, Close Encounters of a Third Kind and Star Wars convinced Paramount that the science fiction films could do well. Other science fiction films, apart from Star Wars, could do really well. So they decided to cancel Phase 2 and resume attempts at making a Star Trek film. Now, the work on the film began in 1975, okay? And the show was cancelled in 1969. Roddenberry lobbied really, really hard for this movie. And, you know, again, with success of Star Wars, Close Encounters of a Third Kind, changed the Paramount plans, which was a good thing. I always say if Star Wars didn't if Star Wars didn't happen, we probably wouldn't have had Star Trek. Star Trek probably wouldn't go as far as it is now. I think Star Trek has been around now for almost 50 years, I think. Is it 50 years? 66, 76, 86, 96, 2006, 2016, 26. Sorry, nearly 60 years. My God, nearly 60 years. Star Trek has nearly been around for, and it's crazy. Like this franchise wouldn't have survived, I don't think. In 1976. Also, as well, when it comes through the story of it, how this movie got made, like, you know, you're making the film. You know, they're going through making this film. The budget for this movie was $44 million was the budget for this movie, and I think the show only garnered $15 million to make. I could be wrong, but we'll have to do the Star Trek original series episodes soon, because this one is kind of like a birthday episode for myself. So, because I was like, oh, Star Trek would be great to have one, because we haven't had a Star Trek. We've had a Star Trek Next Generation episode, but we haven't had a Star Trek movie episode yet. So, you know, this is why we're doing it now today. But however, the movie was made. It did really well. It was released in North America December 7th, 1979, called Star Trek The Motion Picture. Received mixed reviews of many of what fault in lack of action scenes and over reliance on special effects. Its final production cost $44 million, as we've just said, and it earned $139 million worldwide, which in those days is pretty good. These days, probably not so good, but it was still really, really good. However, Gene Roddenberry was forced out of creative control for the sequel, Star Trek II, The Wrath of the Khan, which was a far superior movie to this. But we'll talk about that another day. And obviously, this movie has garnered director's cut, special DVD releases as well, remastered audio, tightening and adding scenes, and new computer generated effects as well. So over the years, like, this movie has garnered a lot of criticism. I've criticized this movie quite a bit, to be honest with you, because it's not the best Star Trek movie of all time. And there's a few other things in this movie that a lot of people don't know about, which is in like the special editions, which we'll get to at the end. But uh, you know, it's hard to say because I think back if you were born, if you were like a kid in the 70s, like my dad was born in 69, so my dad would have been 10 years old when this movie come out. Sorry, Dad, to age you, but it is what it is, right? Um, you know, my dad was 10 years old when this movie came out, and he enjoyed it. You know, as a kid, he really enjoyed it. But as he got on through life, and the other Star Trek movies came out, he was like, the motion picture is good, but the other movies are far better than that, which is fair. Right, let me have another drink. Talking to myself is a lot of work, you know. Get thirsty quite a bit. Lovely. Right. So enough of me rambling. So the plot of the movie, it's pretty self-explanatory, really. You know, the movie is set in the 23rd century, which is where this is 5 years, no, 10 years. The way they've worked it out, it's 10 years since the original series. So it's about 10 years. So in the 23rd century, a Starfleet monitor station Epsilon 9 detects an alien entity hiding in a massive cloud of energy moving through space towards Earth. The cloud easily destroys 3 Klingon warships and Epsilon 9 in the course. On Earth, the Starship Enterprise is going under a major refit. Its former commanding officer, James C. Kirk, has been promoted to Admiral, and Starfleet Command assigned to the Enterprise to intercept the clouded entity. As the ship is one of the only one in range, requiring its all new systems to be tested in transit. Now, this is where like the cool opening. This is where I'll give the movie props. Like, this movie starts off really well. You know, you got the Star Trek, you've got the main theme with all the credits at the start, which is awesome. And then all of a sudden the music dies down and you have like this twang of like a bass guitar or something. And then all of a sudden it starts kicking in with this really cool like which is like the main Klingon theme. The Klingons didn't have themes in the show, not to that my recollection. And plus, you could tell the difference as well between the costume designs of what they were trying to do, because the Klingons in the show, in the original series, were just looked like us, regular humans with like long beards, and had like these like weird uniforms and cool like cool gear and cool ships, you know. But when this movie came out, the Klingons have vastly changed. They've still got the D4 class cruiser, 3 of them, which they had in the original series. But the costumes are different. They're wearing the I call it now the classic black leather armor with the chrome trim, and they've obviously something's happened with their look as well, because they've now started growing like the ridges on their foreheads, and it's going all the way back, and then the hair's coming down as well. So that's a new look as well. They look more Klingon-esque that we all grew up with. The people will argue probably these are the first real Klingons. But for me, the first real Klingons are the ones in Star Trek 3 Search of Spock with Christopher Lloyd, who portrays like one of the first Klingons, which I think is the first modern Klingon, should we say. And that's what I love about it. But we'll talk about it another day. I can't wait. There's so much to talk about without talking about other movies, you know. So you go through that, you see this blue cloud as well, and then the blue clouds throwing things, throwing energy balls at ships and at the space station as well, and making them all disappear, killing a lot of people, which is crazy. You think, whoa, what's this? What's going on here? Meanwhile, on Earth, Kirk is like trying to get on the Enterprise, gets on the Enterprise, gets taken around the cruise, taken on board with Scotty, I think. Scotty takes him, transits him over, and they have a look. It's the first time Kirk has looked at the Enterprise since, like we like to say, original series, but like he hasn't seen the ship in. I'm guessing the timeline's like 10 years. No, it can't be 10 years. So it's going to be 5-year mission. Come back. So say 2 to 3 years. All right. There's no exact date. If somebody knows the exact timeline, let me know. I thought it was like 10 years, but no, it's kind of like 3 years. I would say 3 years. Because I don't think you could keep a fleet, the flagship of Starfleet in space dock for 10 years to get rid of everything, unless it is a mega job, right? So like Kirk sees the ship for the first time, and it's kind of a cool thing. It just drag on a bit, but you got the music in the background, it makes it bearable, and then you dock in, and then that's it. They don't say anything. You just get these little looks and smirks. You could tell how much James Kirk loves the Enterprise and how much he misses being on the Enterprise, because a captain and a ship have like this cool little relationship, and once you fall in love with a starship, that's it. You probably can't fall in love with another, or it doesn't feel right if you're not on the ship, They get on, and then Kirk then looks for a gentleman by the name of Will Decker, who is the new captain of the Enterprise and is about to take her out, or soon take her out, on a maiden voyage in the new refit model. That's another thing. The refit model. So this Enterprise is completely different to the original series one. It's the same ship, but what they've done, they've changed the color of the ship, obviously, and the warp nacelles, instead of being round cone shapes, they've put like rectangular shaped nacelles over, and instead of being like that, they're a little bit white. So on the original Enterprise, they're like that, okay? But on this one, they're kind of like that, like kind of like winged. Kind of like winged a bit, a little bit wider, I think. And then the deflected dish, instead of like a golden dish pointing, it's like a really big blue light, which kind of gives it a more realistic look, I think. The ship is completely different. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Me saying it looks absolutely gorgeous. It looks absolutely gorgeous. I think it's probably one of the nicest looking ships of all time. And, Kirk goes to Decker and says, look, I'm taking over the command of the ship. And he goes, why are you doing this? For the simple reason, Kirk gives a simple reason: 5 years of being out there, I know what I'm doing. We're demoting you to commander for this mission, and you can have, you'll have the ship back and whatnot. Decker sees through it. He's angry. He's pissed off. Because he's been given this command. It's an honor to be in command of the Enterprise. He knows what the ship is like. He knows the refit models, for Kirk, it's kind of like, he's like ship envy. He's like captain envy, because he's been promoted to admiral, which means in this era, admirals can't fly ships or anything like that. They can't go out into space. They have to stay and do desk work, basically. And obviously, we know through time, James Kirk isn't that kind of like Starfleet officer. He is a captain first and foremost, and that's what he's meant to be. That's what he's always meant to be, is captain of a starship. But you could tell it becomes evident as like time gets on through the films. This is kind of like the starting point of it. So obviously Kirk, they have to test it. Deck is like, right, okay, that we'll have to do that then. Kirk is like, I'm sorry, blah 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 blah. Goes off, and then that's it. They leave space stock as well. Ship's running fine, and then they decide, let's go to warp speed. However, as they go to warp, the new warp drive of the ship malfunctions, and they end up in like this warp field like disaster, which brings them towards an asteroid. And Kirk is about to say, Kirk's trying to get the ship to what should we do and whatnot. So you see, with the asteroid coming towards them, he decides, fire the phasers, and then Deck is like, no, use photon torpedoes, be easy, it's better. Races to the weapons corridor, and they fire the torpedoes. And everything's back to normal all as well. Kirk, feeling a little bit butthurt in this, takes him to his quarters, giving him a riot act basically, and like, why did you do that? And Decker explains like, if we did that, we'd be destroyed as well as the asteroid. And Kirk's like, yes, okay, of course you were. Calms down then, and then lets Decker go. McCoy, you still got the old characters. All the old characters are in this as well. You got Kirk, Spock's in it, McCoy. All the original characters are in this movie, which is great, which is so good. Because you still got to have them dynamic characters. Uhura's in this. She's the. I love Uhura. She's a strong woman, and in each movie she's in, her hairstyle is different all the time. Because when we saw her, she had like her hair was all nice, like swirled up in like this really cool like bun. In this movie, she's got the classic 70s like the classic 70s like Afro style hair, which is amazing as well. Scotty, he's going grey, but he's also he's grown the mustache, the famous mustache that we all know and love. McCoy's not changed. Chekhov's not changed. Sulu hasn't changed at all. I kind of think Sulu, out of everybody in it, Sulu is probably the one that doesn't age a bit until like 95 or something, when he does the special guest in Star Trek Voyager, and it's pretty awesome. You've got all these characters here again, Spock as well, but then Spock comes, but in the story, Spock comes back, fixes fixes the ship, and then they're on their way to this cloud. Now they get to the cloud throws like the energy balls at them and everywhere, and and then after they stop scanning, because they scanned the cloud, and they decide, what, don't turn the scans off, and then they realize, scanning indicates that this ship, whatever this is, would identify the scanning systems as a weapon, so it's there to defend itself. So the ship goes into the cloud without any hitch or any disasters or anything like that. As they go in, you can see like different things happening, like technology and whatnot. It's pretty incredible to look at. And then they reach the center of like close to the center of the object. Obviously, as well, we got a new character. We get introduced to a new character called Lieutenant Elia. I think her name was Elia. She's like the new navigator of the Enterprise as well. And Decker's love interest as well, which makes a change from Kirk's love interest. Let's be honest, right? Makes a nice change. But then the cloud probes the Enterprise, and then takes Aliyah with her. Takes Aliyah, and then all of a sudden, a few moments later, is it a few moments later or a little bit later? A probe gets transported onto the Enterprise, looking like Aliyah, and this was like the point of contact for the aliens. In which, while this is happening, Spock decides to goes through the portal without permission, because he's a Vulcan. He's curious. I must see what's going on, because he can sense the consciousness of this entity or this creature or whatever it is, and he attempts to mind meld with it, and obviously causes a disaster. He starts flipping back. They decide then to, they bring him back on the Enterprise. The crew brings him back on the Enterprise, and yeah, that's Spock is like laughing, and he's like, "That was the most experienced thing I've ever seen." And then the ship is allowed then to go through with the probe. The probe, who is Aliyah, I'm going to call it Aliyah. Aliyah tells them that we must go through this way, because to Kirk, this probe is acting like a child in a way, so he's going to treat it like a child. And the person, the probe is calling the creature inside Vija, so we get the name of what's inside. And Vija is like the creator, is considered the creator to this probe. So the crew goes in, whatnot, and they reach the center. They see like this big version of Aliyah, which freaks everybody out. And then they come up to the center, which then the ship is parked at, and then they realize there's atmosphere out there, so you can actually walk out there. So they take the lift up onto the ship's bow, and then walk across this like hexagon tiled area to the center, where they realize, wait, this looks like one of early Earth's space probes. And they go down, look at it, see the nameplate, and it says Vija. Then they wipe it away, and they realize it's Voyager. So Vija is Voyager, the Voyager probe that we all know about, which is Voyager 6, which is an old space probe that was lost in a black hole, and an alien race of living machines that intercepted it, programmed in its instructions to learn of its creator. And then something, I don't know why, something weird happens then. The ship starts to like implode. Aliyah starts to implode, but Decker's like, no, I'm staying with the blah, 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 blah. They die, and then they go off back into the ship. The ship then turns around and goes out. And as the cloud dissipates, the ship is like miraculously fine and everything's all well. And they decide, what do we put down for Aliyah and Decker's service record? Just say missing in action. And then they do something. And then, what is it then? Kirk directs the Enterprise out to space there for future missions, and then the movie ends like that. Kind of like a... It's kind of like like these. I think if you watch this movie back, and you think, "Oh, that was really good." Now these days, you're kind of looking at it. It was quite anticlimactic by the end, because you find out that this is what this is, and then the cloud explodes, and then that's it. The ship is fine. You'd think the ship would have a bit of damage to it, but you don't. But what makes it interesting about this movie, the original concept for the ending of this movie was the ship was going to get damaged through this adventure. Proper, there's sketches and whatnot. It's in like one of the special edition DVD special editions talking about it, where the ship was supposed to be heavily damaged and they couldn't save the ship, so they decided to separate the saucer section from the ship and crash land on Earth, and then the Enterprise would be destroyed and then they'd have to make a new one. The Studios X didn't want that, so they decided to go with this ending instead, which was proper and whatnot. But can you imagine? I think the way they describe it, the ending of that concept ending for this movie, I think that would have been brilliant. I think that would have been really good. You'd have had a new Enterprise then for the next movie. Probably Enterprise A. Probably, I don't know. But then I thought that wouldn't have made then the saucer separation of the Enterprise D as special, because they didn't do that stuff until the Next Generation. The Next Generation was where the first ship saucer section separated from its main drive. So I don't know how special that moment would have been if they did it on this. I'm kind of glad they didn't do it, because the Enterprise D separation wouldn't have been as special. Because I remember when I was 4 years old seeing that for the first time, and I was like, whoa, that's amazing. I think even my dad turned around and said, yeah, if they decided to do this in 79 for that movie, then this wouldn't have been as special. So I'm glad they didn't do it. I think they could have come up with a better ending for this movie, but what are you going to do? It's the first movie in a massive franchise, You can only get better from your first movie, right? I mean, it's happened with all major Star Wars, all major like movie franchises have either a good first movie and really bad sequels, or a really bad first, or a somewhat mediocre first movie and really good sequels, or just bad all round, So yeah, this one was talking about it. It actually it's not too bad. I say to everybody, like, Star Trek, the motion picture, yeah, you can watch it. It's not the best Star Trek movie, but if you're going to start watching the movies, watch that one first, and then you see the dramatic difference of the motion picture to The Wrath of Khan, which ends up being like a 3-movie series in itself. Okay? And yeah, watch it. Watch this movie if you haven't done so yet. Just head over and watch it. All right? Right. I don't think there's anything else to talk about this movie. I don't think there is. Let me go through my notes here. I think a celebration for this movie as well. They decide NASA named a space shuttle Enterprise as well, which had the original cast there. That's a cool moment and whatnot. For movie wise, I don't think there's anything else really. So if you haven't watched this movie, what is it? 79, 89, 90, excuse me, 79, 89, 99, 2009, 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. This movie is 45 years old this year, right? 45-year-old movie. This is, and it lives up. It still lives well. It still holds up well. Obviously, with like the digital remastering and whatnot these days, it's not a bad movie. It's a good start to the franchise, to the movie franchise of Star Trek. Not the best movie, but I would say have a look at it, see what you think. make your own judgments. Okay, right. Here's we'll cut to a little bit of music now. Hit the outro, and then we'll get on. So in a bit. And that's it, guys. That was episode 43. I will get these numbers right, for goodness sake. But thank you all so much for tuning in for this week's episode. I do appreciate it. Don't forget to catch us up at each and every week. You can hear us on audio form on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and even over on YouTube as well. You can catch us on video form on YouTube as well. If you just head over to It's That Nerd James on YouTube, you can catch all the episodes there. I still don't have a proper YouTube channel for the podcast, but I'm quite content now on this on the podcast being on my main channel, and it's going really well as well. So I don't really want to mess with that. So head over to that right now. Also as well, you can follow us on the socials. You can follow us on Instagram at Multiverse Entertainment Pod. You can catch us on TikTok at Mo Podcast. And now you can catch us on X or Twitter, or whatever the hell it's called these days. You can catch us, I call it Twitter still. Catch us on Twitter at The Mo Podcast. That's the and then MOE and then podcast, all in one. Catch us on there. Catch us on social media there. You can catch me on social media everywhere at It's That Nerd James on Instagram, TikTok. You can catch me over on YouTube as well. It's That Nerd J on Twitch, on Twitter as well. James is too long, so they decided, James is too long, so you're going to call you Jay. So It's That Nerd J on Twitch, on TikTok. You can catch me on Twitch as well. It's That Nerd James on Twitch. You can catch me there. We play video games. I'm currently there doing 4 to 5 days a week now, which is actually really fun because everything fits around everything. So check us out there. I'll be on, as you listen to this, on Monday. I will be on tonight, so come check me out there. And then I think that's everything. I think that's everything. Is that everything? Yeah, that is everything. So that's all good. Now, next week is episode 44, and we're back to the TV elements of the multiverse. We are talking about another classic game shows. That doesn't even make sense. Like game shows of all time. We're talking Wheel of Fortune. So feel free to come over and listen to us next week. Enjoy your week, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Enjoy the music that we love so much. Have a good one. Goodbye.